Everything started when I accepted the briefcase of money. Part 3. Confrontation with the Past. Chapter 11. The Last Refuge. I hid in an abandoned garage for several hours, sitting in the darkness, listening to every sound, every movement outside. The briefcase was beside me, heavy not just with its physical weight, but with the weight of all the souls that had been taken for what was inside it. I thought about Tawfiq. Did he survive? Did they capture him? He had risked his life to save me, and I ran and left him. The guilt was eating me from the inside. When the streets became busier with the start of morning, I left my hiding place. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. I took out my phone, then realized I couldn't use it. They might be tracking it. I threw it in the nearest trash can. I was alone, without a phone, with a briefcase full of dangerous secrets, and being hunted by the most powerful criminal gang in the country. I thought about going directly to the police, but I remembered Captain Al-Omari's name on the list of corrupt officers. How many other officers were working for the gang? If I went to the wrong station, I would be handing myself directly to them. No, I had to reach Assistant Attorney General Nadia Al-Khatib directly. But how? I remembered something. Yasser, my friend who owned the vegetable shop, knew someone who worked in the Attorney General's building, his cousin or something like that. Maybe he could help me. Walking to Yasser's shop was risky, but I had no other choice. I tried to walk normally, hiding among the morning crowds, my head down, the briefcase hidden under my jacket as much as possible. It took me 40 minutes to reach Yasser's shop. The shop was open, and Yasser was arranging vegetables in the display as usual. When he saw me, he smiled, but his smile faded when he got closer and saw my condition. "Oh God, Kareem, what happened to you?" I looked around cautiously. "Yasser, I'm in trouble, big trouble. I need your help." He took me inside to a small room behind the shop. "Sit down. Tell me what happened." "I don't have time for a full explanation," I said quickly. "But I need to reach Assistant Attorney General Nadia Al-Khatib. Fast. Didn't you say your cousin works at the Attorney General's office?" "Farouk? Yes, but he's just an administrative employee. Why do you need the Attorney General? Kareem, you're scaring me." "Please, Yasser, trust me. This is a matter of life and death. Literally." He looked at me for a long time, and I saw worry and fear in his eyes. But he also saw something in my face that made him nod. "All right, I'll call him." He took out his phone and called. After a short conversation in a low voice, he ended the call. "Farouk says the Assistant Attorney General is in her office today. She has a court appointment at 1 p.m., but she'll be in her office until 12:30. He said he can smuggle you in through the back entrance, but you have to be there before 12. I looked at the time. 10:30. I had an hour and a half. "Thank you, Yasser. I owe you a lot. Just be careful, my friend. And when all this is over, I want to hear the whole story." I smiled despite everything. "If I survive, I'll tell you everything." Chapter 12. The road to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's building was in the city center, half an hour away by taxi under normal circumstances. But I couldn't take a taxi. They were looking for me, and any driver might remember my face. Yasser decided to drive me himself in his small delivery truck. "Sit in the back, between the vegetable crates. No one will think to look there." I hid among the tomato and cucumber crates, the briefcase stuffed under me. The smell was strong, but I was grateful for the concealment. Yasser started driving carefully. I could hear the sounds of the city from outside, car horns, people's voices, normal life continuing while I was hiding, fearing for my life. Suddenly, the truck stopped. "Checkpoint," Yasser whispered. "Stay calm." I heard voices outside the truck. A police officer asking for papers. Yasser responding in a normal, relaxed voice. "Open the back," the officer said. My heart stopped. I heard Yasser get out, "Open the back door." "Just vegetables for delivery, sir." "Why all these checkpoints today?" Yasser asked in a curious tone. "We're looking for someone, a dangerous man. He has something he shouldn't have." "Oh God, I hope you catch him soon. The country has become unsafe." I heard the officer laugh. "We'll catch him. He can't hide forever." There was a long silence. I was barely breathing, frozen among the crates. "All right, you can continue," the officer finally said. Yasser closed the door, returned to the driver's seat, and we started moving again. I didn't breathe normally until several minutes later. After 25 minutes of tension and fear, the truck stopped. We're here, Yasser whispered. The back entrance is 10 meters away. Farouk is waiting for you at the door. I'll open the back door, and when I say now, you get out and run to him, understood? Understood. I heard Yasser open the door. Now! I jumped from the truck, clutching the briefcase, and ran toward the metal door that was slightly open. A thin man with thick glasses was holding it open. Quickly, come in. I entered, and he closed the door behind me quickly. You're Karim? He asked, breathing with difficulty. Yes, you're Farouk? Yes, Yasser called me, said it was a matter of life and death. What happened? I need to meet Assistant Attorney General Al-Khatib immediately. He looked at the briefcase in my hand, then at my bruised and dirty face. Are you in trouble with the law? No. I'm trying to help the law. Please, every minute matters. He hesitated, then nodded. Follow me. But if this is a trap or something, it's not a trap, I promise. Chapter 13. Nadia, Al-Khatib. Farouk led me through back corridors, avoiding crowded places. The building was huge, a maze of offices and rooms. Finally, we stopped in front of a heavy wooden door with a brass plaque. Assistant Attorney General Nadia Al-Khatib. This is it, Farouk said. Good luck. He knocked on the door. A woman's voice from inside. Come in. He opened the door. Ma'am, there's someone who wants to see you. He says it's an emergency. I entered the office. A woman in her early 50s was sitting behind a large desk wearing an elegant gray suit, her black hair gathered in a neat bun. She had intelligent, sharp eyes that examined me quickly and efficiently. Who are you, and how did you get in here? She asked in a firm but not hostile voice. My name is Karim Al-Salem, and I'm here to give you something that Rami Al-Salem gave me before he was killed. I saw something change in her face when she heard Rami's name. She stood up. Rami? You know Rami? I knew him for only a short time, but before his death he left this with me. I raised the briefcase. She looked at the briefcase, then at me, then at Farouk. Leave the room and make sure no one disturbs us. Farouk left and closed the door. Sit down, she said, pointing to a chair in front of her desk. Tell me everything. And so I did. I told her about the man in the black suit, Rami, who came to my restaurant, about the briefcase and the offer, about the police who came asking about him, about Taufik who told me about Rami's murder, about the files I saw in the briefcase, about the chase this morning. She listened to me with complete attention, never interrupting, but her eyes gleamed with intelligence as she absorbed every word. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Rami Al-Salem was one of the best lawyers I've ever known, she finally said, her voice a bit softer. He was working with me secretly on a case against the Boss family for 3 years. He was brave, principled, and exceptionally stubborn. I knew he was gathering evidence, but he never told me where he was hiding it. He feared exposing me to danger, and now he's dead, I said quietly. Yes, she nodded sadly. They found his body yesterday. Multiple stab wounds, a brutal crime. But the corrupt police will say it's just ordinary gang violence and they'll close the case quickly. Unless you have this, I said, pointing to the briefcase. She smiled a cold smile. Exactly. She opened the briefcase and began examining the files one by one. She read quickly but carefully, and the more she read, the more her face hardened. This is more than I expected, she whispered. There's enough here to imprison half the ruling elite in the country. I took the flash drive from my pocket. There's also this. I didn't look at it, but I think it's important. She took it and inserted it into her computer. She opened the files. I saw her turn pale as she looked at the screen. What is it? I asked. Audio recordings, recorded phone conversations, secretly filmed meetings. Rami was practically an undercover agent. She looked at me. Do you realize you've been carrying your life in your hands all these days? If they had seen what's in this briefcase, they would have killed you immediately. I realize that now, I said dryly. She closed the computer and looked at me seriously. Karim, what you did was very brave. And very foolish too, but primarily brave. Thanks to you, we can now launch the biggest campaign against corruption and organized crime in the history of this country. But, I asked, because I felt there was a but coming. But this will be dangerous. The Boss family won't surrender easily. They'll fight, they'll threaten, and maybe they'll try to kill witnesses. I'm a witness, I said. Yes, and that means you're in great danger. I'll need to put you in a witness protection program. You and your mother, you'll have to disappear for a while, maybe for months until the trials are over." I thought about my mother, the restaurant, the simple life I was trying to build. All of that was gone now. "Is it worth all this?" I asked in a tired voice. She looked at me with sad but firm eyes. "Your father, Karim al-Salem, was a brave man who tried to expose these same people. They killed him for it. Rami al-Salem tried to complete what your father started. They killed him too. Now you, the son of Karim, have a chance to finish what your father started 15 years ago. You ask if it's worth it? Only you can answer that." She was right. This was bigger than just my fear or my safety. This was about justice, about making my father's death mean something. "All right," I said, "I'll do it. I'll testify. I'll do whatever it takes." She smiled. "Then let's get to work." Chapter 14. The storm begins. Within hours, the machinery began. Nadia Al-Khatib called her team a small group of investigators and prosecutors she trusted completely. She didn't tell the regular police, fearing a leak. I was transferred, along with my mother, who they brought from the apartment, to a safe location, an apartment in a protected government building. My mother was terrified and confused, but she understood when I told her everything. "You really are like your father," she said, wiping her tears. "Stubborn, principled, and sometimes foolish. But I'm proud of you, my son." The next day, the arrests began. 15 people in the first wave: businessmen, 2 police officers, and even a judge. The news was exploding with the story. The biggest anti-corruption campaign in the country's history. The headlines read, "But the Boss family didn't surrender." On the third day after the arrests began, they tried to reach me. 4 armed men stormed the building I was in, but the guards were prepared. There was a firefight, which I heard from my protected apartment. 2 of the attackers were killed, the other 2 arrested. After that, I was moved to a safer location, a military facility outside the city. The following weeks were a blur. Endless interrogation sessions where I told my story over and over again. Lawyers, investigators, prosecutors, they all wanted to know every small detail. But there was good news too. Taufik survived. He was injured in the confrontation in the alley, but he survived and was now also under protection and would testify in the trials. And the Boss family was collapsing. More arrests every day. Small gang members started talking, testifying against the bigger ones in exchange for reduced sentences. The entire system was falling apart. Chapter 15. The trial. After 3 months, the big trial began. It was the biggest trial in the country's history. 48 defendants charged with murder, human trafficking, money laundering, corruption, and many other charges. I was the main witness. I entered the courtroom and the place was full of people: journalists, lawyers, victim families, curious onlookers. Cameras were everywhere, though my face was obscured to protect me. I looked at the defendants. Among them were businessmen whose faces I'd seen on TV, politicians who claimed to serve the people, police officers who had sworn to protect the law. And there in the front row was Captain Ahmed Al-Omari, who had come to my restaurant months ago and asked me about Rami. He was looking at me with pure hatred. I testified for hours. I told the whole story from the moment Rami entered my restaurant until the moment I handed over the briefcase to Nadia Al-Khatib. They showed the files, the recordings, the photos. The defense lawyers tried to discredit my testimony, saying I was a liar, that I'd made it all up. But the evidence was overwhelming. The files, the recordings, other witnesses' testimonies, everything matched. The trial lasted for weeks, but in the end, the verdict came. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 46 out of 48 defendants were convicted. Prison sentences ranging from 20 years to life imprisonment. The Boss family had fallen. Chapter 16. The new life. After the trial, I was given a new identity, a new name, new documents, a new life in a new city. That was 6 months ago. Now I stand in a small new restaurant, not named Al-Nakla this time, but the New Beginning. Not in the same city, not even in the same region, but it's a restaurant and it's mine, and in it I start again. My mother is in better health. She had the surgery. The government paid the costs as part of the witness protection program. She comes every day, sits at the table by the window and smiles. "If your father saw this," she says, "he would be so proud." Taufik visits me sometimes. He also got a new identity, a new life. We've become good friends bonded by an experience we can't share with anyone else. Sometimes I think about Rami. He told me recently. I wonder if he knew when he entered your restaurant that night that he was starting a chain of events that would change everything. I think he hoped, I replied. I think that was his goal all along. Sometimes at night when I close the restaurant and clean the tables, I think about everything that happened. How accepting a simple briefcase one decision in a moment of desperation changed everything. I think about my father who died trying to do the right thing. I think about Rami, who sacrificed his life for justice. I think about all the other victims whose names I never knew but who were part of the same battle. And I think about myself. I was just an ordinary man, a small restaurant owner trying to survive. But life doesn't always ask if you're ready before it puts you to the test. In my pocket, I always carry a small flash drive, a backup of a backup. Life insurance, as I like to call it, because the battle against darkness never ends. You might win a battle, but the war continues. Customers begin arriving for dinner. I smile, welcome them, take their orders. It's a simple, quiet, ordinary life. And that's exactly what I want. But in the corner of my mind, I'm always alert. I watch for new faces, pay attention to people who sit for a long time without ordering much, listen for strange conversations. Because the boss family may have fallen, but there's always a new family trying to rise. There are always powerful people who want to stay in the darkness, who want corruption to continue. But there are also people like my father, like Rami, like me, ordinary people who decide in a crucial moment to stand against the darkness. Chapter 17. The Unexpected Visitor. Another month passed. Life was settling into a comfortable pattern. The restaurant was doing well. Regular customers were beginning to form, and my mother was happy. Then, on a rainy night, something happened that changed everything once again. It was close to 11 o'clock. I was closing the restaurant exactly as I'd been doing that night when everything started months ago. The rain was beating on the windows forcefully, and the street was almost empty. Someone knocked on the door. I stopped, the memory flooding over me. How many times had this happened before? How many times had a knock on the door at a late hour brought me trouble? But I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't a frightened, panicked man. I was a man who had faced the worst that could happen and survived. I opened the door. A young woman was standing in the rain, completely soaked, shivering. She was in her late 20s with long black hair and wide eyes full of fear. "Please," she said in a trembling voice, "I need help." Every instinct in my body screamed, "Don't do it, don't get involved again." But I looked at her face, at the real fear in her eyes, and I remembered myself months ago, scared, alone, needing help. I opened the door wider. "Come in." She entered, leaving a puddle of water on the floor. She was carrying a small backpack, torn and worn. "Sit down," I said, pointing to a table. "I'll get you a towel and something hot to drink." When I returned with the towel and a cup of hot tea, she was sitting, her head down, her shoulders shaking. She was crying silently. I sat across from her. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she whispered. "All right, Sarah, tell me what happened." She looked at me with eyes red from crying. "You won't believe me. No one believes me. Try me, maybe I'm different." She took a deep, shuddering breath. "My brother disappeared 3 months ago. He worked as an investigative journalist. He was investigating a big company. The police said he ran away, that he left the city of his own free will, but I know he didn't. I know something happened to him." I listened attentively. The story was painfully familiar. "And what do you want from me?" "Before he disappeared, he sent me a message. He said that if something happened to him, I should come to this city, to this street, and look for a man who could help. A man who was in a similar situation and survived. A man who owns a small restaurant called The New Beginning." I felt a chill run down my spine. How did your brother know about me?" "I don't know. But he was a good journalist. He knew how to find information, even hidden ones." I thought quickly. My story was supposed to be secret. The government promised to protect me, to hide my identity. But if an investigative journalist had discovered it, how many other people knew? "What was your brother investigating?" "A large import-export company. He believed they were laundering money and maybe involved in worse things. He was about to publish the investigation when he disappeared." Import and export. The same type of company my father had worked for. "Sarah," I said slowly, "I'm very sorry for what happened to your brother, but I don't know how I can help. I'm just a restaurant owner." She looked at me in desperation. But my brother said, "You're the only one who can understand what he's going through. The only one who faced the same people and survived. Please, I have no one else to turn to." This was the moment. I could say no, ask her to leave, continue with my new safe life. I had paid a heavy price for this peace. But I looked at her face and I remembered myself. I remembered the fear, the desperation, the need for someone, anyone, to believe me and help me. I remembered my father who died because he tried to do the right thing. I remembered Rami, who sacrificed everything for justice. And I realized this wasn't the end of my story, it was just a new chapter. "All right," I finally said. "I'll help you. But you have to tell me everything, every detail, even the smallest, and you have to trust me completely." She smiled for the first time, and no weak smile but full of hope. "Thank you. Thank you so much." She took a sip of tea, then began to talk. And as I listened, I realized that life had decided to put me in the same position again. But this time I was ready. This time I knew what to do. Chapter 18. The circle completes. In the following days, I helped Sarah search for her brother. I contacted Nadia Al-Khatib, who promised to open an investigation. I contacted Tawfiq, who used his connections to get information. Slowly, the pieces began to come together. The import-export company was a front for a new money laundering operation, established by some former members of the Boss family who hadn't been caught. Sarah's brother, Yasin, had discovered everything, and when they tried to silence him, he resisted. So they killed him, buried his body, and made it look like a voluntary disappearance. But Yasin was smart. Like Rami, he had hidden copies of his research, of the evidence he'd gathered, and he left instructions for his sister on how to find them. With Sarah, we searched and dug and found. We found a flash drive hidden in Yasin's apartment. We found files buried in a secret cloud account. We found an entire network of evidence. And once again, we handed it over to Nadia Al-Khatib. And once again, the arrests began. But this time I knew what to expect. I knew Sarah would need protection, support, courage to testify, and I was there for her every step of the way. In the second trial, I testified again, but this time I wasn't afraid. I was angry that they tried again, that they thought they were above the law. And this time too, justice prevailed. Chapter 19. The Legacy. A year after that rainy night when Sarah came to my restaurant, I now stand before my father's grave. I hadn't been here in years. The grave was simple, a small headstone bearing his name and the dates of his birth and death. Nothing else. No words about his courage, about his sacrifice, about the attempt that cost him his life. I knelt before the grave and placed my hand on the cold stone. "Hello, Dad?" I whispered. "Sorry I haven't come in such a long time. I've been busy." I smiled despite the tears that began to fill my eyes. "I want you to know they were punished. The people who killed you, the people who thought they could get away with murder and corruption and evil, they're all in prison now. They'll never hurt anyone else again." I paused, wiping my tears. "You were trying to do the right thing and you paid the price. But I want you to know that your sacrifice didn't go in vain. Because of you, because of your courage, because of your refusal to be silent, you started a chain of events that changed everything. I'm proud of you, Dad, and I hope you're proud of me too." I stood up and placed a small bouquet of flowers on the grave. "I'll keep fighting. For you and for Rami and for Yasin and for all who sacrificed. I won't let their darkness win, I promise you that." I left the cemetery, the sun beginning to set. There was a peace in my heart I hadn't felt in a long time. On my way back to the restaurant, I passed a large billboard. It was for a new government campaign. "If you see something, say something. Together we fight corruption." I smiled. It was a beginning. Not an end, but a beginning. I reached the restaurant. My mother was already there, sitting in her usual place by the window. Sarah was there too. She'd become a close friend and was now writing a book about everything that happened, about her brother, about the case, about how ordinary people can make a difference. Tawfiq entered moments later, smiling as usual. "Ready for another day of work?" "Always," I replied. I opened the restaurant and customers began flowing in. It was an ordinary, simple life, but it was my life. A life I built with my sweat and blood and tears. But more importantly, it was a life built on a foundation of principles, on a foundation of faith that justice is possible, that courage is worth the price, that good can triumph over evil. In my pocket there's still the small flash drive, the backup of the backup, life insurance as I like to call it. Because the battle isn't over, it will never be over. There will always be people trying to exploit the weak who steal, lie, kill. But there will also be people like me, like my father, like Rami, like Yasin, people who say enough. People who stand up even if they're afraid, even if the price is high. And for the first time in many long years, I feel that my father would be proud. Everything started when I accepted the briefcase of money. But it ended with something more valuable than any money. It ended with justice, with dignity, and with a legacy worth being proud of.